Hey everybody, welcome to Unpopular Reviews, Dark Side of the Ring. We are doing Season 1, Episode 1, Macho Man, Randy Savage, and Miss Elizabeth. So let me bring on my co-host first, going with Victor Rodriguez to Mark. How are you?
Hey girl, how you doing?
I'm good. And bringing on my next co-host for tonight, Stefan. How are you? What's up?
Oh my God, this is so last minute. I'm tired and all sorts of unprepared, but we're gonna see how tonight goes.
It should be good. It should be
I
good.
wish that was vodka or something because you look like you need a shot after that. Like,
Oh no, juice. Trying not to drink on the show. So I'm not leading. This is all you, Mark. This is all you. This is all you.
What you mean? You're not leading. What do you mean? This is
You told me to do the intro.
Well, okay. So now, welcome everybody to Dark Side of the Ring. Now, we do things a little bit out of order here on Unpopular Reviews because we are just in the middle of craziness. So we just finished season 2 with the King of Hearts, the 2-time Slammy Award-winning King of Hearts, Owen Hart. And now we are reverting back to season 1, and then we'll continue with season 3 when it comes out. So right now, as you can see, because the mark is, and the mark means, and always prepared. Look, I even have the little sticker on it and everything. I never wore this shirt, none of that. So, to start this episode, the very beginning of it was an introduction to Angelo Poffo, the father of Lanny Poffo, genius Lanny Poffo, and the Macho King. Oh yeah, Randy Savage. Now wait, what was the name of the federation that he owned?
Let me make sure I get it right. It is the International Championship Wrestling.
Oh, okay. So it seems like Katrina knows a little bit more about that. Go ahead, continue.
Oh my god. Well, I mean, they pretty much just mentioned that his dad was like a wrestler and wrestling promoter. I know he had a couple of cards in like Arkansas, Kentucky, Tennessee, and then pretty much saying that like Macho Man pretty much came from like a wrestling family, like a lot of the wrestlers are. Like his son. What was his brother's name? What is his brother's name? What is it, Lanny?
Yes, genius Lanny.
So it's like he's one of those like your second generation. I don't know if this grandfather or anything, but like second generation wrestler, which is pretty common in most wrestling promotions. You usually have like father, son, grandfather, brothers, whatever in it. So I mean, I remember watching it the first time I watched it, and I actually did not know that about Randy Savage. So for me, that was actually, even though we watching it, I knew that when I first watched it, it was like a new piece of information. I did not know his father was a wrestler as well, or promotion. So that was new information for me.
Yeah, they never booked him that way. They never called him a second generation wrestler. They never, they never ever booked him like that. Like, which is cool because Randy Savage pretty much just got to build himself. I mean, yes, he was working for his father's promotion, and people must have known him from that. But at least when I was coming up, I knew the Macho King, and I knew I hated him because he was a really, really good bad guy, and that whole situation with Sensational Sherry, like I really, really hated him. But I was a kid, so and he played his role very, very well as a heel.
Yeah.
But yeah, that information that they mentioned, I felt the same way. Like I didn't know, which is one of the reasons why I really like Dark Side of the Ring, because like they give you like the little information that's in the cracks that everybody kind of overlooks. Hey Stefan, how you doing?
I mean, I'm good. I'm obviously watching you guys rock and roll here, but I think it's really important to give fans, especially those who are really interested in these wrestlers as people, these little details that they don't know about. I mean, especially if you're trying to be a professional wrestler, like Dark Side of the Ring does provide you with a broader kind of outlook or look into what being a professional wrestler is, and I think that's extremely important, especially for Randy Savage, who is honestly one of my favorites. I love his elbow from the top rope. I love his gimmick. I just love the fact that he was so ahead of his time in terms of what he he did, in style and everything. Um, Chris says he's a fan today. That's wonderful. He should be a fan every day. Mike says, "What's up, guys?" Mike. So yeah, I mean, I really think Macho Man was ahead of his time. Mike asked the Mark, what is your in your house match?
Well, we'll talk about in your house tomorrow when we're going to be covering NXT and AEW. But I'll bring that up when we talk about promos. So, what were you saying, Stefan?
No, I just said like to follow the career of a wrestler such as Randy Savage, who was so ahead of his time in terms of his in-ring style. People nowadays compare his in-ring style to the style today. Very fast-paced, hard-hitting. He picked his spots. He was somebody that knew in-ring psychology, and that was very important to his gimmick and his character, whether it was Macho King or the Macho Man Randy Savage, or the Mega Powers with Hogan. He was very much one of the ahead of his time wrestlers, and I really appreciated that Side of the Ring decided to do a special on his life. And also Miss Elizabeth. That's the second part of this episode. There's two halves. There's Macho Man and Miss Elizabeth. You can't forget. They're like Twix. They come two in a pack. You can't get one without the other.
Precisely. Now, one of the things about Miss Elizabeth is that a lot of people didn't know that her and Randy were already married.
Yeah.
And they had been married for several years when they were on top. But their story is a really nice one because I forgot who told the story, but when they met, they had a conversation over him being all red-eyed. Who knows why he was red-eyed? But they had a conversation about him being all red-eyed, and apparently that's all she needed. Like, I wonder if there's a little bit more details for that, but apparently that's all she needed. She's just like, look at the other one, and then that was it. And it was love at first sight, apparently. But it was cool because you see the dynamic between them. He's all crazy, and she's very reserved. So it's kind of like opposites attract. And it's something that a lot of people could have definitely related to. One of the main issues is just that he had his wife on the road, and that's kind of something that's tough to do. So one of the main things, at least starting to lead to the Mega Powers, in my opinion, was probably most of it was some of it was true, because I feel like he was probably protective of her from the beginning, because as soon as she started just doing work with him, you could already see that he's being incredibly protective, and at the same time, can you blame him though? Like, it's the 80s, it's a men's locker room, you want to keep your wife away from all the so
it's funny because when you look at their love story, it kind of you have two people that are seemingly perfect for each other, like you said, opposites attract. And then, like you said, the energy of being around the male locker room and having, all these influences. He's on the road. Usually when you're on the road, you're meeting women, and for women, you're meeting guys, vice versa. And you're interacting with fans on a regular basis. And, you're pretty much doing whatever you want. The road, I heard one wrestler say the road is no place for your wife or your spouse. The People's Wrestling Channel says, how come this is only on YouTube? I have no idea. That is
it's on Facebook as well.
It's on Facebook.
Also on Facebook as well. So, I mean, it's kind of one of those things that is really interesting that he had his wife along with him, and then also having that dynamic of her working with him as a manager. I think that doesn't happen very often. I mean, we have examples of that failing. I don't want to get into another episode of Dark Side of the Ring, but you had Benoit and his wife. We're not going to get into that, Benoit and his wife, but we're going to get into how she was the manager for another wrestler, and their marriage failed. So it always seems to be something that is doomed to fail. Charlotte Flair and the guy she was dating, and the guy Paige was dating, Alberto Del Rio. So we have constant examples of wrestlers dating in this industry and Who's fun and why is his wall covered in rustling stuff? Because I'm trying to be like the Mark when I grow up. That's I'm a UPR original. I'm trying to be like the Mark when I grow up and have a bunch of rustling shit on my wall. Mike Riggs says, Katrina, when Miss Elizabeth passed away in 2003, I couldn't believe it. Still to this day, I miss Elizabeth.
Well, speaking about Elizabeth, the way that they were pretty much just introducing her, like I said before, is that she had a calm demeanor and he was crazy. So, one of the cool things, and this is something that I missed out on, was that one of the ways that they kind of were booking her, and one thing that I remember is that I feel like I think that they tried to do this with Rusev, and it was starting to work, but then it kind of like dwindled away because I remember, and it was really cool because Randy Savage would just play this mega heel, but everybody was cheering for Elizabeth, and he would treat her bad, and they would do this whole thing about her leaving him, and they would do this. They would just she was just incredibly subservient to him. But then it worked. The whole thing just worked as far as his heel character ended up working out. But now his heel character got so good that they ended up getting into the Mega Powers, which was awesome. The way that they just just spoke about that whole entire thing, because I had completely forgotten that his heel work was surrounded around her. So now I wonder if how much would he have gotten over if she wasn't there at that time.
No, I think it helped because she was like, they kept the words they kept using her was like she was classy. She was like always dressed like a nice ball gown looking dresses and the gloves and some, her hair was always really nice. And she was always, it wasn't like where, if you were either really brolic, and I don't like women wrestlers, they either had to be like, enough that like, okay, this woman wrestle, or there was the other where it was just that they were like, I can't be. So Miss Elizabeth was pretty, but she was also what they kept saying, she was so classy. Everybody liked that she was so classy, and he was like such a savage as to where they went, off character. Like he was so mean, sometimes even mean to her, where it's like, of course, like we hate you, but we love Miss Elizabeth so much that we accept it because we love Miss Elizabeth. So I think that's what it was. Just because she was just, she was like, I want to say like if that's the right word, like America's girl, and they say like the America's sweetheart. Like that's what I felt like it was for wrestling fans. She was just like the sweet girl who was really classy, and she stood by her even if he was kind of rude and disrespectful. It was like that kind of thing that I think everybody liked about it more so. And even with what you mentioned about them being on the road, I mean it's implying that stuff we go down on the road that's not appropriate, because it's like every time they're like, oh, on the road you don't want your girlfriend there. Like, what are you guys doing that's that crazy that you don't want your spouse there? I feel like the spouse should hopefully keep you in line or something. So I feel like maybe that's what it was. And they did mention like about like sometimes the pranks would be a bit much, or the stuff they did was a bit much, and I'm guessing he didn't want her around that, which I understand.
I think every guy, and I don't want to speak for any other guy but myself, I think we all have that, and I don't want to change the theme of this episode to relationships, but I think every guy, is very protective of the woman that he's with when she's around other guys. It's a naturalistic quality. It happens with all of us, but if you're in an environment that is hyper macho, no pun intended, and there's a lot of guys there's a lot of ways for stuff to happen, and I think that's where trust comes into play. And I think in his own mind he maybe didn't trust her completely around that. Maybe he understood himself, but I don't want to speak for the man. Obviously the man's dead, but I know that if I was a pro wrestler and I had a girlfriend, I would probably be like, I don't really want you around the locker room.
But then at the same time, though, like at the same time, like it's a situation where there's a relationship where one is a wrestler and the other one is a valet, right? Now, I had brought up Rusev and Lana earlier because when Lana was originally starting to get over, Rusev was still a mega heel. and my obviously she got over on her looks because it just started happening organically. Like people were, Rusev would come out, he would come out to a ton of boos, and then Lana would come out right behind him, and everybody would be like, "Hey!" and she would wave to the crowd, and then he would turn around and get mad at her and scream at her. And this episode just made me think of that. Like, I wonder how far that could have gone if they would have taken it anywhere. It definitely wouldn't have been a Macho Man and Elizabeth, but I wonder where that would have gone. Now, to go back to that, basically that whole situation led to the Mega Powers, which was one of the biggest faction tag teams in wrestling history, because you took the Immortal Hulk Hogan and the Macho Madness and you put them together, because Macho Man got so over as a heel that he just ended up becoming a big babyface, kind of like Stone Cold Steve Austin. So once the Mega Powers went together and they beat everybody, it just got to the point where they had to just fight themselves, fight each other. And the way that they did that whole angle was perfect, in my opinion. Now, I wonder how much of it was fake and how much of it was real. Because at the end of the day, Macho Man was still somebody that was very, very jealous.
I think a lot of it was real. I think when you look at some of the little nuances between the between the two of them, you notice that there'd be moments where Macho would look at Hogan like, hey, watch your shit, and I love, I want to say I love that tag team. That's when I believe one of the moments where Hogan was at his best, because he had a partner that was not just on his level athletically, but in terms of star power, they were just at the same level. And I think that was very important. But I think there's a certain part of that where Randy outshined Hogan. And that was a major factor as well. There was jealousy. Right. There was not only jealousy in terms of Miss Elizabeth, there was jealousy in terms of star power. Who's the biggest star? Is it Hogan or Randy Savage? Who's the person that's getting the most merch, sold, or has the most fans? There's always going to be that in the locker room, because you're trying to grab the brass ring. You know what I mean? Jesus, that was a huge statement, Chris, or whoever's running Gorilla.
No,
that was a breakup text message. Did you try to get me to read?
Yeah, no, Mike Riggs is like, I don't know what he's doing, but read that. I mean, look, you can't even, it cuts off. Mike, you can't read the whole thing. Yo, Mike, listen, man. Oh, wait, you can't. I thought you could. Look at this. Look at this. It cuts off your whole face. Mike, break up your comments, please. Like,
points, Mike.
I mean, we appreciate you, Mike, but like, this is
I appreciate you, brother. You give me a lot to read. Like, Katrina's a writer. She'll tell you bullet point the shit out of that.
I mean, Mike, we appreciate your comments, but you're giving us homework.
So thank you for that. I appreciate you.
Because no one calls WWF just called the WWE title. Yeah, well, at the time it was the WWF. But why? Who brought that up? I don't know what he's talking about. Oh yeah. Anyway, what was I saying? What the hell?
Yeah.
What just happened? Oh, okay. He's talking to somebody. All right. So, like I was saying, right, during the Mega Powers, one of the great ways that they covered that angle is that after a big victory, Hulk Hogan picked up Elizabeth and put her on his shoulder, and then got into one of the craziest promos ever. She's never been on another man's shoulder, Hogan. I see you looking at her with lust in your eyes, Hogan. And it was incredibly believable, and I wonder how much of that was real. Like, I wonder how much of that he actually felt, because it was a really, really, really good promo. And in my opinion, Vince was just genius to take advantage of that whole situation.
I think a good chunk of it was real, because it was stated by several people in the documentary that he really was jealous of Hogan, or like the friendship, even though she was friends with Hogan's wife at the time. It was still like, he was very jealous.
Wait a minute, I completely forgot. Thanks. Thanks, Ricky. I completely forgot about Linda. Tell us more. Tell us more about Linda.
Well, she was in a lot of a chunk of the episode because I think she called, like, they were supposed to be very close. I don't want to say best friends, but they were close enough that they hung out together. And when stuff was going on, she was one telling her about the stuff going on with Randy and how she was like, even when she left Randy, she called her. So to Linda, like, I'm done. So they were close enough that even Linda was saying that, yeah, he was like really jealous of whatever friendship she had with Hogan, even though not saying Hogan didn't cheat, I'm sure he did. But I mean, like, she was usually with his wife. So it was very, very odd that Randy used to get so upset about stuff, even if storyline purposes, it was just like, but do you really not trust her that much that it's this, like, you're getting this upset about it?
I hear this line a lot. This line is said a lot. It's not that I don't trust you, it's that I don't trust the other person. You know what I mean? I hear that line a lot. And I don't want to play devil's advocate here, but Hogan wanted everything at that point in time. You know, Hogan was on top of the world at that point in time. So, you know, it was Hogan's world. And because he had the mega powers, you know, doesn't mean that Hogan didn't want WWF championship reigns and whatever. You know what I mean? He was always seeking what would get him over. Not to bash Hogan today, but, you know, was Randy kind of off point in thinking that Hogan would try to take his wife too? I mean,
and there was always talks about threesomes and all of that. You know what I mean? There was always talks about all of that jazz. All right, I'm sorry. Wait, I'm getting a phone call. Let me just bow out for 1 second.
So, what's next, Kira?
So, they mentioned about the wedding that they had, which was nice because I forgot. I think she was gone for a little bit, and then she came back, and he proposed. And they kept saying that the way the camera panned to Elizabeth when she was in, like, the ring, in the audience watching Randy get beat up, and she was like hurt and everything, like, and people was like, they felt it, like it was like an emotional string pulled when they kept going to her when she looked really upset, like, oh, you're hurting, like that type of thing. And he proposed to her. So even though, like, they were already married, they were saying that they capitalized off how well that played out with the audience. Like, oh, he got his woman back, you know, she's back, it's her and Randy all over again. So and then they were talking about how when they did do the wedding on TV, even though they technically married, that they enjoyed doing it because it was like, you know, we're kind of having fun with it. Like, we're already married, but it's nice to kind of have, like, the glitz and the glamour and, like, oh, we're getting married. So I thought that was pretty cool. I don't know if it was more so like, I feel like that was probably like toward the beginning of the end of them because they kind of broke up not so long after that. But it was definitely nice to see. This is one of those, like, as a fan perspective, that, oh, this is how, you know, you tell a story enough that the fan is like, oh, okay, you know, I can relate to this. I feel a little bit something watching the fact that he kind of got his woman back when, you know, he proposed to her. So I thought that was pretty nice to kind of see, because I understood from a fan perspective, I understood that, like, yeah, if I was watching this, like, when it first happened, I would have been like, oh, like, okay, like, you know, older now, I'm like, oh, he's abusive. Like, technically, the way he talked to her was abusive, personally. But as a kid, I would have ate that up. Like, oh, it's just.
I mean, like, you know what though? I'm not gonna lie. That whole spot of Elizabeth running to the ring and taking out Sherry and all of that, though, like, even after watching Bruce Pritchard say, like, oh, we got him, like, that was real human. I'm not gonna lie, like there's a part of me that still tears looking at that. You know what I mean? Like, I don't know. There's just certain things that you watch it back and it's always gonna get you. Like I'm gonna keep it real. Like, when Scar throws Mufasa off, I still feel. You know what I mean? Like, when Scar does the whole thing, like, you know, long live the king.
Long live the king.
When he does that, like, I'm still feeling away. You know what I mean? When he does, and then you see Simba, and he's anyway. You know what I mean? But still,
no,
like,
I feel you, because I never let him go. Never.
Like, there's certain things.
First of all, see, you know, Chris, here you come being difficult. Like, no, we're not gonna cheer for Scar.
What do you mean you cheer for Scar?
Granted, his whole Be Prepared song is a whole bop. I love Be Prepared song. Now, it's a whole bop. It is. But we're not gonna be like, I'm still hurt about that. And that was like 95. So I was what? That was 97, 90, whatever year it was that happened. I am still hurt about that. I was still full away. Like, even watching it with my kids.
It was 94. It was 94.
Yeah. Even worse. Even worse. I was mad young. Okay,
Yep.
and even now, if I watch that scene, knowing that this is gonna happen, I still get upset. Like I don't know he died.
It's
Every
one
time I'm just like, you know what? Like you had to do this, bro, just to your own. Oh, okay. Like to
I'm
your
not
own
gonna lie,
brother.
this
Oh,
time,
just
like I had the VHS, so there was times where I like fast forwarded past that shit because man, I was not that shit. That was a heartbreaker. You know what I mean?
I'm
And
gonna be
like
completely honest.
I like
That is
I'll be
like,
scared. Like if James Earl Jones was to die, oh my god, that would be the worst for me.
you can't say that. Don't jinx it.
Like,
Don't
you know
jinx
what I
it
mean?
at all.
That's Darth
That's the
Vader
original
and
Darth Vader,
Mufasa.
exactly.
You know what I
You
mean?
don't know
Like
who the original voice of
that's
Darth Vader is.
I
crazy.
always say like the fact that he was like so dope that even though it was a white guy in a costume, they needed his voice. It was like, because he's dope. And his voice is so powerful that they was like, no, we need this black guy right here. Do the voice. It's fine. Like this
Yep.
black guy right here.
That's Black
It's
History
good.
for you guys out
Like,
there. That's Black History for you guys tonight. But I mean, to be completely real, I didn't originally see that moment. I didn't. I've watched it back, and like you guys have said, every time you watch that moment back, you get the feels because you can connect to it, and that's really what wrestling's about. People think it's about what they do, the actual wrestling, but it's not. It's about the in-ring psychology. It's about literally, it's about the drama. Like that's why they call it sports entertainment. Because they're trying to entertain you. The wrestling is the payoff, you know what I mean, to these grandiose storylines that they develop to get us interested. This is, you know, extreme. It's melodrama, and it's amazing. And that's why we're wrestling fans. And I think sometimes that's missed. But that, I mean, I agree with Pritchard. That was done perfectly. That was completely done perfectly. You know, by Vince.
I mean, that's probably. I mean, not to cut you off, but that's probably the most memorable part of WrestleMania 7.
Definitely was. I mean, Miss Elizabeth can't take no mores. The commentary was so perfect. She couldn't take no more. She has to defend her man.
Right. And then she ran to the ring.
It's amazing.
It was awesome.
It was. I mean, we live for moments like that as wrestling fans.
I don't know. Like sometimes there are people I have favorite matches for, and then sometimes I'm like appreciative of like as a body of work. So I'm appreciative of his body of work. I don't know if I can't say I have like a favorite Macho Man, Randy Savage, as I'm a Shawn Michaels girl. So like if you ask me about Shawn Michaels, I could probably like list it all or whatever because he's the reason I became a wrestling fan. But I'm appreciative of his body of work and like what he's done. Like he was one of the most charismatic characters ever in wrestling, and his voice was very, very distinct, and I think that's also makes him very memorable. The way he talked, like my grandmother loved Macho Man, so that's actually how I know who he is. My grandmother loved him, and the whole Slim Jims commercials and everything. She loved him, so I feel like for me, it's an overall appreciation for his body of work.
So awesome! Snap it to a Slim Jim. Oh yeah.
We're talking about Randy Savage. We're talking about
like
Randy
honestly, like you know how they retrofy everything now. If he was still alive, I guarantee you his fucking Slim Jim commercials would get so over.
Ricky's right.
Right now, like I would go buy a Slim Jim just to be like snap to a Slim Jim.
So Ricky's right. Randy Savage versus Ricky Steamboat was one of his best matches. So if you guys haven't checked out that match, definitely go and check out the Steamboat versus Randy Savage match. Really good matches that they had together. Mint, what's going on? Raul said hi to us earlier. How are you doing, Raul? I wanted to acknowledge you. But since we're talking about Randy Savage, before I ask the question, all right, Mike has asked, hey, I will have to be honest about the time Macho Randy Savage popped the question on the Superstars of Wrestling, July of '91. I knew it was a moment in history.
Yes, and speaking about that moment in history, that was the moment in history that we were actually leading to, because after the whole situation with Sensational Sherry and the Macho King and Elizabeth got back together, that is when they set up a wedding. Now, mind you, at that point, they were already married for 7 years, and this was information that I was not privy to, and I thought at the time that wedding was real. Yo, talk about hooking the mark. So yeah, man, that was it was really cool, and obviously it was work, but it was really cool because like Pritchard said, they were like two kids in a candy store. Like they were really happy to do it, like if it was their first wedding. And I mean, you never know what the first wedding was actually like. It might have been a courthouse situation. It might have been something obviously not nearly as grandiose as what they had, on what was it? It was a Superstars, or it was a Main Event that they did that wedding.
I honestly don't remember. I probably looked that up. I can. Let me see. Let me see.
I'm gonna read comments. Superstars. Yep, I like wrestling. Unpopular.
It was on Superstars. Okay,
Yeah,
cool.
Stars.
So now, there was a certain part of that wedding that, in my opinion, it was incredible booking. It was just mwah, beautiful booking. What do you guys think about that?
Whenever you work the fans completely, whenever you have the fans completely eating out of the palm of your hands as a booker, as somebody creating storylines.
Wait. Before you continue, what I'm asking you is, do you remember what happened at the end of that wedding?
Dude, you didn't ask me what happened at the end of the wedding.
No, this is what happened at the end of the wedding. What happened at the end of that wedding is the one and only Mr. Jake the Snake Roberts had a cobra pop out on them. I think it was out of a wedding gift, and that's what started the whole feud between Jake Roberts and the Macho King. You know what I mean? So, like, I thought that was just mwah.
If we're talking about,
scared the shit out of everybody, fucked up the whole wedding, fucked up the whole like I love you moment between them, and like got so much heat on Jake Roberts, it's not even funny.
But if you're talking about moments that are very integral to starting feuds, you have to have moments like that. You have to have moments that make us feel like, oh, we're safe in that moment, and then take it away from us and bring a moment where it's like, oh shit, like the stakes are higher.
Yes.
So I mean, it's a great moment. Anytime that you can do that, going back to what I was gonna say earlier, anytime that you can work the fans, and obviously with the wedding, Randy Savage and Elizabeth were already broken up at that point. So it's like you work them in that sense, and then you set up your next major feud for Randy Savage with Jake the Snake. And Jake the Snake is like completely the opposite of Randy Savage, very methodical, amazing at promo work, just an amazing, and they both have like such great bodies of work. So those two working together is an amazing thing. So I think it was perfect booking. I think from a booking perspective, whoever booked that entire, like, just that match, whoever was
No, that had to be Vince. He didn't have a million writers. He didn't have all this crap.
If it was Vince, then Vince is a genius, because that setup was perfect, which goes back to the point that Vince is a genius. You know what I mean? I think that some people don't understand how great a booker he really is. We're always so quick to blame him for the thousands of fuck-ups that his writers make. Mike has blocked out the mark. So I'm going to read the comment. The match that Randy Savage had with Ric Flair at WrestleMania 8 was a turning point where Randy Savage won back the championship. And I honestly remember watching that match, but after the match, it made me sick to my stomach. But in reality, Randy Savage had his bride by his side, and that was a Hall of Famer, Gorilla Monsoon said. And that's what Hall of Famer Gorilla Monsoon said. Katrina, do you want to address the comment that Mike had here until Vic gets back?
I guess I could say it's a turning point for Randy Savage. I'm not really sure why it was put, but I agree in regards to it being like a turning point.
So, the question that Victor asked, how do you feel about the entire storyline leading to the Jake Roberts feud? What did you think about from start of that match, the sensational, the Macho Man match, where he's abandoned by Sensational Sherry, gets back with Elizabeth, and then has this beautiful wedding on Superstars? What did you think about that piece of booking, just in terms of what we see now in terms of weddings this day and age?
Well, I think it's kind of harder now. It's kind of harder to do certain things because I said social media in a way has ruined wrestling. So sometimes when you want to go over storyline, you can't if that wrestler is now doing something totally opposite. No worries, Mike. When you have storylines going one way on the show, and then you look at people's Instagram, and you're like, oh well, okay. And why? Of course, realistically, we know that these wrestlers have lives outside of wrestling, and they do things with people outside of wrestling. It's kind of hard to try to suspend some kind of disbelief to something when you know, oh, well, this is not what their social media said. So back then, I think it was a lot easier to pull that off. Like, oh, they got married, and then, oh, well, here's a surprise. It's kind of how I like not. I just kind of how I felt about the whole Undertaker losing his streak thing, and I wasn't like crying or anything, but I was generally surprised. And I'm saying that only because that was the one thing that was his. You know, that whole WrestleMania streak was his streak.
I wasn't
So-
surprised by that. It was WrestleMania.
So that happened. So why I wasn't like when they kept showing the guy in the audience who was just like the shock, and they kept going to this one guy who was like shocked and eyes were super wide. I was like, okay, you guys really just took the one thing that like the one thing that the Undertaker had that was like the unbeatable was the streak. You wouldn't take anything else. I felt like that streak was so. So when that happened, that was one of those moments like, okay, so this was okay. Like, so I feel like that's what it was. It was like, oh, we had something so nice. They got back together. They got this nice wedding, and oh, just when you think everything is like peachy keen, nope, here we are with something else. So I thought, and that's, but it's like before I write and end something, a whole bunch of bullshit in there just because I'm gonna have you thinking, yeah, maybe everything gonna seem, nope, let's add some more conflict in it. That's like the freaking goal of a writer. It'll make you annoyed to the very end. So, like when you want to like keep putting shit in there. Well, I'm not that bad at it, but like when people say like it's considered like conflict. So how can you make this story like you think everything might be fine? Nope, let's add another conflict in there. That's literally it's called building tension. So writers do that shit all the time. So I feel like that's what they were doing. It was like, let's get it to, oh, there's no way to come back from this. Oh, yay, happy ending. But it's wrestling, so you can't just necessarily end it. How can we now put some conflict in this? We ended this chapter. Let's add some conflict. Oh, let's add in Jake Snake Roberts. So that was like for that moment. Yes, it was actually very well.
I think that's Vince at his finest.
Let me ask a follow-up question. So, do you think today in today's wrestling that booking is pretty much flawed based on the fact that you can't, like you mentioned, social media being part of the reason why you can't build real tension because kayfabe is killed every day. You know what I mean? So, do you think that this wrestling product today, in today's age, suffers because of social media? And
yeah, I mean,
could thrive if people would just wait for storylines to be completed. Vic,
well,
I want you
yes and no. You know why? Because we didn't know about shit. What is her name? Oh my god, I can't believe we're forgetting her name. The girl that had this really big heel turn at NXT War Games.
Dakota Kai.
Dakota Kai. We didn't see that coming. We didn't see that coming at all.
I mean, I did.
The executive consultant saw that coming.
I did. I see. So this annoyed people get annoyed by this because I do tend, again, this is a writing thing. So normally I can tell. It's very hard to surprise me now. So like now, if I'm surprised, I'm like, okay, you surprised me. It's hard to because there's usually little things they do. So they kept making sure to like, oh, she got left out this week because she was injured. Oh, let's put this person team. You're a liability right now. And they kept doing little things. So when it happened, I was like, this was not a surprise because for the weeks building up to it, it was little things they would do to let us know, like foreshadowing, oh, she's probably going to turn. Let's act like she's a liability. Let's act like we don't really need her. You're supposed to be my friend, but you're picking this other person besides me. Then they kept showing the scenes of her backstage by herself while the rest of them were doing their thing. I was like, oh yeah. So when it happened, I was like, okay, this was not a surprise. It's usually how now, which makes it hard for me to watch a lot of things. Is like, but it truly surprised me. I just gotta be like, oh, okay, you really. It's hard now. It's really hard for me to surprise me.
I didn't see that. But I mean, I definitely see what you guys say when it comes to the internet ruining everything. Because you have rumors, you have dirt sheets, you have this, you have that. So there's a lot of parts of wrestling that are ruined. But then there's certain things that sometimes can surprise you. Now, Kylie Ray turning heel, that certainly surprised me. Brock Lesnar coming out and winning the Money in the Bank. That certainly surprised me.
That was funny.
Yeah, that was just insane to me. Nia Jax coming out.
The reason why I didn't find Brock
Rumble.
Lesnar surprising, I was very annoyed by it because I don't like Brock. I was annoyed, but my reason was there was too many incidents during the match when you could tell they were dragging it out.
Yeah.
Like there was plenty of times Ali should have gotten that, and I'm like, so what the hell? Like at one point he was just sitting there doing nothing. I'm like, so nobody else noticed this.
Yep.
Nobody else noticed that they're waiting. They're obviously waiting for something. So once that happened, so when he came out, I was like, so this is the one. Really, Vince, like that's literally how I went because it was just like, so nobody else noticed that there was a moment when they were not even wrestling. It was just they were waiting, as if they were waiting for whenever he was going to walk out. And maybe it might have been because they found out right after, and they might have been annoyed by it, possibly. But I saw it. So one of those verses that again, I usually notice those little things like what I consider foreshadowing. So for me, it was the same thing with the whole Lana and Dolph Ziggler story. Like I actually was okay with the storyline. Like she's leaving Rusev, he's being a bit of a douchebag, and Dolph seems like the knight in shining armor. And then she posted that picture up with Rusev, but getting married, and I was like, oh, all right, well, there goes that storyline. And once that happened, once she posted that picture, that was it for that storyline. Like, well, now we can't believe you're upset with Rusev because you're sitting and telling me you're about to get married. Like that completely ruined the whole storyline. So while I don't necessarily care, I know again, it's like soap opera, like with wrestling involved. I feel like wrestling is soap opera, so I'm not surprised. And it's like the equivalent of when you watch a TV show and you're mad tight that this person might have died, but then you see them hanging out with the person, like for like Walking Dead when you see like Negan after he beat up Glenn and then they have a picture together. Realistic, like if I saw Negan, I want to hurt you. You killed Glenn, my poor Glenn. But then it's like, oh yeah, but this is a show, so it's cool. But with wrestling, I guess because they try to blur that line between reality, it's always like it's hard when you have them posting on social media, or you have the blogs who want to be the first person to tell you about this rumor and be right about the rumor. Like, oh, I told you this was gonna happen. It's like it makes it harder. And I feel like people also want instant gratification, so you can't sometimes even build the way you need to build all the time. Like somebody, as soon as somebody get the one thing they asked for, like 2 weeks later, okay, we're tired, and I'm like, but you just asked for this, like you just asked for this.
Kofi
and it's like the whole Becky thing. Like, granted, she was champ for a year, but like literally 2 months after. Oh, Becky is getting pushed over and she's not being utilized. She gets utilized. She gets popular. I'm tired of Becky. She just got the belt. Like, how you guys wanted this? So I feel like that's that instant gratification. And then once the gratification has happened, now it's on to the next. Like, they have really a short attention spans and they cannot hold on longer than a couple of weeks. I feel like that also messes up wrestling. Being like back then, you literally had to wait until we saw it on TV. There wasn't all these podcasts. There wasn't all these shows after wrestling. Let's talk to the wrestlers here. So I think that's the difference. Like now and then.
I mean, so
I feel it was the same thing with Kofi.
You can't do long-term booking anymore. Long-term booking is impossible because, like you said, fans are impatient. We want what we want when we want it. I remember me and you, Katrina, were having a conversation about Drew McIntyre winning the WWE Championship. We were like, if he does not win the Rumble, we are going to riot. It was going to go on our Facebooks, our Instagrams, everywhere. We were going to riot. And lo and behold, Drew McIntyre wins the Royal Rumble.
Yep.
He wins WrestleMania. We should be happy. There are still people saying he's not a good WWE champion, when in actuality, he's one of the best WWE champions in the modern day. Just
he's the only WWE champion to never wrestle in front of fans. So
it's not his fault that there's like a whole thing happening. Like he was like, today's a good day to like, let's become champion. Like nobody thought. I mean, well, if they were listening, nobody thought it would got to the point where we had to be like with no fans and you had to be careful.
I'm sorry, but Ricky, what are you doing, bro? What are you doing, Ricky? What are you doing?
Ricky's having a good time tonight. Ricky's being
Ricky, for
I honestly, this is not current Becky, like pregnant Becky. This is when Becky literally right after she won the belt, people was bitching.
Like obviously, come on.
That was after that match.
Anyway, oh wait, but I'm sorry because obviously look, we went into a tangent onto Drew McIntyre.
Definitely did.
To bring it back to the actual show. After the Mega Powers, then Hogan and Savage started a little feud, and the reason why, and this is probably one of the conflicts that you were talking about, and I wonder what you guys think about this situation. It was the Mega Powers in a tag match, I think, versus the Natural Disaster, no, versus Money Inc. And there was a situation where Elizabeth got hit, and Hulk Hogan was the one who took her backstage to get medical attention while the Macho Man was in the ring and getting beat up. And which is obviously something that should have been the other way around. But the way that they booked that, I also thought was mwah. Because they basically had Hulk Hogan go back and take care of Elizabeth while it was Money Inc. I don't know. Was it the Natural Disasters or was it Money Inc.? I'm not sure. It would have been one of the two. But
it was definitely neither one of those two. Neither one of those two tag teams existed when that incident happened.
So what tag team was it?
I believe it was Macho Man and Andre the Giant, but I'm sorry, not Macho. $1 Million Man and Andre the Giant. I could be wrong on that, but I believe that's what it was. It was way before the times that you were saying. I'm just a fact checker in the back, so I'm here to help out anybody whenever they're saying they're wrong, like Ricky's saying that he's relevant. Anyway, backstage.
So yeah. Anyway, so Hogan pretty much just took her to the back. And then Macho Man went back there and he was like, I'll see you. You have lust in your eyes for Elizabeth. You left me in the ring, brother. And that pretty much just started that whole feud. But like I said before, I personally thought that whole situation with Hogan just taking her back and all of that, I thought that was awesome because it's really, really hard to book a baby. It really, really is, in my opinion. And the way that they did that, I thought was beautiful. What do you guys think?
Great. I mean, it was great. Anytime you can use real life heat between two wrestlers to put asses in seats and to get people interested in the storyline, the furthering of a storyline or starting of a feud, you do that. We've seen it with Matt Hardy and Edge. Matt Hardy and Edge had nuclear heat with each other. And then you see the two of them come and work together in ladder matches and cage matches, all this other stuff to build up to the culmination of Edge whooping Matt Hardy's ass. But it was good booking. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It made people interested in Matt Hardy getting his job back and then getting fired again eventually. But this was pretty awesome as well because you had real life heat between Hogan and Savage, putting asses in seats and literally getting the fans interested in their pending feud, which, like you said, that match was the seeds to actually having the Mega Powers erupt, and then having that feud between Hogan and Savage, which was an amazing feud.
All right, so right now, we're just gonna pay some bills for a moment, and let me just get into this last comment. You're gonna really, she will be gone for at least 9 months, and then she'll be looking after the baby. Okay. All right. I don't know why you bringing up her pregnancy, but can you just let Becky Lynch be the mom and just like let her be the mom? No te cuando estoy enojado. Yeah, yo, Chris. Nice. I love it. I love how you're trying. I really appreciate that, Chris. I really do. I think that's great. But let's get to some commercials here. So let's see.
Do you want to show your love for the UPR universe? Or do you just want to show your love for Yep, I Like Wrestling? If you want to support these guys, go to ProWrestlingTees.com where you can get shirt and a lot of other merch.
Not only that, ladies and gentlemen, on Friday, join us for the Katrina Show.
Okay. Good old Twilight.
So yeah, so Katrina and I'm not sure who else.
Chrissy.
And Chrissy, yes, Katrina and Chrissy will be covering Twilight, the last two movies of Twilight. So join us because it should be a great, great time. I'm omitting the name of the executive consultant.
He'll be there. You know,
Yo, Chris, come in here real quick and say, don't do that. Why don't you come in here and be like saying, don't do that? Just waiting for that one. But anyway,
he'll be there.
Where were we? We were at.
Well, I know, like, yeah, after the wedding, I think she leaves him after that, and then that's when they kind of moved into commentary. When Vince kind of had him doing commentary, which he wasn't happy about.
Vince thinks that he's getting too old, so he puts him on commentary. He sticks him on commentary.
Well, I mean, I completely agree. I think that's what pretty much made him lose the Macho Man. Because the problem is, I think at that time, for some reason, Vince didn't necessarily see the value on the mic. But Eric Bischoff sure did, and Eric Bischoff was smart enough to see that $750K annually in Slim Jim money comes with the Macho King. So, in my opinion, Eric Bischoff was very, very smart to have the doors wide open for the Macho Man.
I think anytime that you have a professional wrestler, and you know, like they say, professional wrestling has a shelf life. You know, you have people like Agent Styles that we're looking at right now. People like, you know, older people like that we're looking at in this day and age. Like, yo, they got a few more years left. John Cena, who is a part-timer now, a couple more years left. You know, we're keeping our eyes on them because we know Vince. The moment Vince is putting you out to pasture, you know what I mean?
Yep.
So I think at this time, you know, with Randy Savage, with respect to Randy Savage, Randy could still go. He can still go in the ring, still amazing on the mic, and you stick Randy freaking Savage on commentary.
Yep.
Tell me what sense that makes. It's not like it's it's not like it's another wrestler that hasn't done really great things. Not like you have Ric Flair where you have to freaking end his career. You know what I mean? Like when Flair versed against Shawn Michaels. You know what I mean? That was a situation where Ric Flair had to end his career. But Randy Savage could still go. He was still as active as anything. And, you know, like you said, Eric Bischoff ate that up and said, hey, WCW's right here, man. We'll pay you more. You'll be one of our biggest stars. And, you know, at that time, there's a war going on. So why would Vince want to lose anybody?
That's right.
Vince lost a ton of people because of misconceptions and misunderstandings. And it showed. You know, you stuck Macho Man Randy Savage on commentary.
You should have done that.
How do you feel about like that? If you had like a prominent wrestler that got a little bit older, would you stick him on commentary? What would you do with that wrestler?
No, I mean he kept him on commentary because he knew that the mic skills were good, and I think he probably wanted to keep him as a producer or as something backstage.
But he
was already in his 40s, right? So like since he was already in his 40s, he probably wanted to keep him and have him do Jesse the Body Ventura work. Chris, she knows, Chris, she knows, that's why she's smiling, she knows.
I said what I said.
She knows. She knows. She knows, Chris, she knows. So she did do that. Why you think she was smiling? She knew that, Chris. Anyway, Stefan, wait, what does this guy say? And I have to be honest, Randy Savage is one of the greatest champions of all time. I agree. He's one of the greatest champions of all time, in my opinion. So to continue with the Randy Savage story after what Stefan was saying, and I think that it was very unfortunate to put him on that seat, but at the same time, that's probably what gave him the the motivation to just head over to WCW. And for Randy Savage, I don't think it was a bad decision. It's definitely not like when Bret Hart went to WCW.
Which is the next episode.
The next episode. So now, Randy Savage going to WCW, unfortunately at that time, which actually was something that I had skipped because I completely forgot about the drama. I completely forgot about the fact that right when they had put Randy Savage on commentary, Elizabeth, she started cheating. Yeah, she was a little hussy. Yeah,
Damn.
it's okay. But at the same time, though, I can't really blame her though. Yeah, I can't. I'm sorry. Can't blame.
Yeah, I mean, he was very
Smothering
controlling
doesn't,
and
clingy, smothering.
she was tired. I mean, I did appreciate when he got to WCW that he wanted to make sure she was okay as well.
Yes.
I actually the fact that he loved her enough that even though we're not even together right now, you're doing your thing right now. Like, I will have you be my manager here too, and you just have to be here. You don't have to do anything.
That's weird though. That's very weird.
I felt like he was still worried about her to make sure she still had money, and I'm guessing he had like a hard time. Like, he did get married again, but it was just like, I'm sure he had like a hard time trying to let that go, and that's probably why he went out of his way to help her. Still, personally, I'm not. That's a little too much. I'm not gonna help you get a job too and secure. Like, no, I'm not that. I'm nice, but I'm not that nice. But
yeah, exactly.
but I felt like
Okay, hold up. Before you read that book, ladies and gentlemen, watching Unpopular Reviews, powered by Yep, I Like Wrestling. Joining you now is the executive consultant, Chris Harris. Joined also Katrina Storm, as well as the Mark Victor Rodriguez, and the man simply known as Stefan. Reviewing to you tonight, Dark Side of the Ring, Macho Man Randy Savage, Elizabeth, Season 1, Episode 1, and I have 15 minutes, so I said, hey, why don't we add a little bit consultant to this episode? Look at everybody so happy to see me. I'm happy to see y'all. Even we're not. Everybody's so happy to see me like right now. Look at that. They're so happy. We're not. Here's the thing. I did not get to see this episode with me, just like all these other fans and all these other ham and eggers definitely know the history of Macho Man Randy Savage as well as Miss Elizabeth. It is one of the most controversial relationships. Actually, it's probably like the relationship when it comes to wrestling. And I don't mean that in a positive way, because there was a lot of positive, there was a lot of negative about these two. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Chris Harris. See, this is why they want me as your UPR champion, which I will take on Sunday.
Yeah, okay.
Oh, yes. So on Sunday, since he's already sitting here talking about the UPR championship, that's not even here anymore. Okay, forget it. That's not even here anymore, Chris. But anyway, we'll get back to that. But anyway, let's get back to the show since you are here and you do got to go fast. So let's bottom line this situation here.
You being funny, okay?
Yes. So at the end of the day, what ended up happening was that Elizabeth was being a little hussy, and she ended up in the arms of none other than the narcissist Lex Luger. Yeah. I mean, maybe she liked the fact that he was super, buff and all of that, or the fact that he could get her pills. But it looks like she, it's kind of like the Catholic school girls that are like really, really sheltered, and then when you open them up, that's it. They just go buck wild. And I have a feeling this is what happened with between Elizabeth and Lex Luger, because I mean, in my opinion, I'm just saying my opinion now. Like, I feel like Randy had her in the hole, and then as soon as she got out of the hole, like, she just went buck wild.
I think Lex Luger probably. I always say, like, if you're like that close out of a relationship, that's usually like a rebound. So she was vulnerable. Of course, you can you're totally like super. You're not like rough and tough. Like, you're like super smooth looking. You got like I mean, personally, I didn't think he was attractive, but whatever. Like, he had like the blonde hair thing going, the buff, super totally like Macho Man was built great, but he was like rough around the edges, and Lex was not that. And I really feel like that was probably why she went for that. It was like the opposite. of what
Randy
Randy
that makes a lot of sense.
Because even when Linda Randy Self was talking about her calling her and leaving, and she was like in her head, it was like that whole like you had enough of this crap. I'm gonna go do something else in my life, and I think that's what it was. She probably it was a whole like she was very vulnerable at the moment, and it sucked that he was probably the one who introduced her to the drugs and stuff. But if I felt like she went from out of one, like from the saying is you go out of the pan into the fire, like I feel like that's exactly what happened. Like you went from Randy Savage, and then you went to somebody who was a whole like the fact that you even allowed yourself to be in the same apartment complex as your that could like if you're gonna do all that cheating, if you're gonna cheat on your wife, how like the audacity and the confidence you have to have your mistress in the same complex. Like the audacity you have. Like, no, it's fine. You're in the same apartment complex. I'm gonna pay for your apartment, and my wife was in the same complex.
No, like, but the thing is that like that's pussy control right there. Like he had to have her compliant to keep all kinds of secrets. But then at the same time, though, she was probably willing because she's in a position where she ain't trying to look like a national slut neither. So, I'm certain that because of that, like, and she's just known to be Macho Man's girl. So, like, I'm certain that there was a little bit of that where, and at the same time, she was probably looking at Lex Luger as a guilty pleasure, which is something that she's never really had till this point. And I don't know if you guys remember her when she was in WCW. Like, I remember when they introduced her as being part of the NWO. And then, she just had like this cougar feel to her, a little bit of like of Vicky Guerrero. It was nothing like when she was in WWE. It was different. She was in her 40s. I think she wasn't even wearing a bra that day. Like she just had like this whole different feel to her. You know what I mean? When she was in WCW. I don't know if you guys remember, but it was completely night and day. And I think that she was already in the relationship with Lex and she was just changing. But you could see that she was liberated. She was just like whatever. She was snappy. She had an attitude. Like she wasn't this like chill, like calm girl. I don't know if I'm saying the right words.
No, you're saying it right. I hate it.
There's only one word. So there's only one word to truly describe everybody involved in this, and it's called drugs. That's all it was. From Macho Man Randy Savage and Miss Elizabeth to Liz Elizabeth and Lex Luger, the night and day difference that she had from WWE to WCW. In WWE, she portrayed the little sweetheart. You know what I'm saying? She went to WCW, she had an attitude because it gave her a refreshing moment, but she was still boring. She was still stale. Everybody wanted that Miss Elizabeth back, right? But this was drug time. Macho Man Randy Savage had the cocaine and everything like that, so he could do the cream of the crop promo and all that other stuff. But then when Macho was asleep, Lex said, "Hey, look, I got heroin." Or where the hell they were on. So you need to come over here. So Miss Elizabeth slid over there before sliding became popular, slid over to Lex Luger, and the drugs did both of those great people in. And I say great because they're still a memorable team. Lex Luger is and Miss Elizabeth is, both of them belong in the Hall of Fame. And drugs is still relevant as of today. Like, for instance, if you look at this comment here, you see somebody who's clearly on drugs because he thinks he has a real title and he talks to Vince McMahon. So, I mean, obviously, you need to see if you're going to end up in a wheelchair in about 5 years. But, I mean, that's the word, whatever you want to describe anything involving Macho Man Randy Savage, Elizabeth, and Lex Luger is drugs.
No. Yeah, I mean, and to piggyback off of that, the unfortunate part and pretty much almost the end of this story pretty much just ended with the fact that unfortunately Miss Elizabeth, while she was indulging with Lex Luger, and for a long time, and I kind of agree with Eric Bischoff when it comes to having a little bit of resentment towards Lex for practically killing her. You know what I mean? Because he, in my opinion, and I say that because he enabled her above all else. And he probably was just doing it for the pussy, in my opinion. That's probably what he was just doing it for. But he certainly enabled her to play with things that she probably wasn't accustomed to, wasn't used to. and you know they were having a good high time and just enjoying each other sexually. But
to answer that, Mike, if Tori Wilson can make it to the Hall of Fame, so can Miss Elizabeth.
of
They're
course,
that like
no, Miss Elizabeth deserves being in the Hall of Fame.
The first lady of the WWE, she definitely deserves to be in the Hall of Fame. I'm not going to get into a rant against Katrina for why Tori Wilson belongs in the Hall of Fame, though. I'm not going to do that tonight.
She does not belong in the Hall of Fame.
I started to interrupt the conversation you had last week, and you were saying that same old stuff.
I said what I said. Tori Wilson sucked. She's pretty. I don't care what she did in WCW because WCW Nitro Girls. No, not Tori. Tori Wilson. Tori Wilson from WCW. Tori Wilson. Nitro Girls. Tori Wilson.
Wife.
Tori Wilson does not belong. Like no, I'm sorry. She sucked. She sucked. She was very pretty. That's what it is. People give passes to pretty women in wrestling. Like they can be pretty. Oh, they belong in the Hall of Fame. No, get out of here. Like you better
it's not even just the fact that she was in the WWE. It's the fact of what she did in wrestling world outside. She's always been a fan. She's always been an advocate, even when she left.
Okay,
she was always talking about it.
I can be a fan and an advocate, and I don't belong in the Hall of Fame.
She belongs in the Hall of Fame.
She did nothing wrestling wise. If you're gonna say what wrestling Hall of Fame is, it's supposed to be wrestling at some point. That is why people think the Hall of Fame is a joke, because you just throw people up in there just because. She has done nothing memorable in wrestling. She was in bras and panties matches, and she was pretty.
I'll be back, guys.
Pretty. That's it. So she can advocate for. I can say, oh, wrestling is great and tell the world. Does that mean that deserves also to be in the Hall of Fame? Hell no. It doesn't mean that. Like no, Tori Wilson's that. Miss Elizabeth, yes, she deserves to be in there. She kind of put the out there for women like managing wrestlers. So yes, she definitely deserves to be in the Hall of Fame. But no, just because people are pretty don't mean no. People just throw people in there just because. No, we ain't doing that. But to piggyback off of the whole Lex Luger thing, I think even before she died, the whole when she got beat up type thing, and she said she like fell down the steps, it was 2 black guys. That annoyed me because like, bro, you hit her. I need to know what steps you have that somebody could fall down some steps and get 2 black guys from falling down some steps and nothing else wrong. Like, what steps do you have that are so concise that you get the person who fell down the steps have 2 black eyes, but nothing else is bruised from falling down some steps? Like, bro, that you beat her and say that, and it was a whole like, oh, and I also think she changed her statement because that's what women in domestic violence situations sometimes do. It's like a fear thing. Like, I'm gonna say that didn't happen. I didn't say. It's kind of what happened with Jimmy Snuka's girlfriend when she like kind of changed the report. And like, oh, it didn't happen that way. That's a fear tactic. Like he was on drugs and he was higher on drugs. He probably beat ass, and it sucked because that's when usually that's like I feel like with Dark Side of the Ring is like when that starts happening to people, it's usually the beginning to the end. Like the person's gonna die, and that's literally what the fuck happened. Like she was gone like a few weeks after that. So that made me sad because to go from like again America's sweetheart, and the next minute you're like on drugs and you're like popping pills and taking alcohol, which is usually not the smart thing to do.
Unfortunately, that always happens. Not always, but it happens a lot in that kind of aspect of life, whether it be sports, whether it be entertainment, whether it be sports entertainment. Look at Sunny. She's over here ranting, and she was a coked up woman also. But, I mean, it is what it is. Stefan, what do you think?
I've been trying to think of my response because, drugs are a horrible thing no matter what, like you said, no matter what place it's done in. I completely don't condone drug usage at all. I'm even to the point of I want to stop drinking because anytime that you're intoxicated or inebriated, like you're just not you, and this was somebody that meant something to millions and millions of people. And just to be snatched away because of drug use, I think there's a lot of pain there. And I don't want to be judgmental because I didn't know the woman, but I can imagine there was a lot of pain there. Drug use for people sometimes based on pain and trying to fill that void by using drugs and feeling better. And, overindulging in drugs oftentimes leads to death. And it's an unfortunate situation. Eric Bischoff blames Lex Luger. I don't want to take the responsibility away from Miss Elizabeth herself. I think that, and it may sound like an insensitive statement, but, you have to have personal accountability for yourself. If somebody's offering you something that you don't want, you say no and you walk out. But we don't know the mindsets there. So I can't completely agree with Bischoff, but I do think it's a very sad thing. Drug use in any industry is very sad. And I think that if you're, especially in sports entertainment, I think you should condemn it. I think that WWE coming up with a wellness policy, after Eddie Guerrero died, was an implied decision. And they're usually blasted as a company that doesn't care about their wrestlers. But I think every company needs a wellness policy that requires their sports entertainers to take frequent drug tests. And if they don't pass, you take time off, you get clean. Jeff Hardy is one of the biggest repeat offenders, not to blast Jeff Hardy because I'm a huge Jeff Hardy fan, one of the biggest repeat offenders when it comes to drugs in the world and alcohol in the world. You know what I mean? Eddie Guerrero, the list goes on. And this is part of the culture of being a professional wrestler because of all the wear and tear on your body, and it's sad, and people don't understand how much professional wrestlers give in terms of their body, mind, and spirit to entertain us week to week. So, you have to kind of take that with a grain of salt. There's a lot of pain involved in professional wrestling. And I think Dark Side of the Ring highlighted that, so it saddens me to talk about drug use, for personal reasons, but it's just, when you see it play out on screen, like Vic said earlier, it's Miss Elizabeth was in WWE, well put together. This maternal-like figure that everybody looked at as the mother of professional wrestling, pretty much. Could go into WCW and just look turned up and completely different. Drugs will change you, Drugs will completely alter you and change you. So I completely condemn it. I don't judge people who do them, but I condemn it for myself. I just don't.
Let me answer a couple of these questions right here. Chris, without question, Miss Elizabeth will always be the original First Lady of Professional Wrestling. Nobody should question that. I mean, who else could you even put up there, really? Chris Harris, can we expect any surprise appearances at NXT TakeOver in your house? That's a conversation really for tomorrow, Mitten. But I will say there should be no surprise appearances. At least I don't see any coming. Hall of Fame is meaningless. Look at who's in it. The year, if it happens, the Bella Twins, like seriously, they also definitely deserve to be in the Hall of Fame. Yes, me. I don't know what that means, Ricky, but that's fine. I don't even want to entertain your comments. Denise says Sunny needs to shut the hell up and stop bashing not one but two women who were better than her and needs to shut the fuck up about Ashley Massario.
Hold up, she spoke again about Ashley Massario?
I don't
Sunny
read
has been getting booked well for the last 3 days. She
wants to remain relevant. She wants to get relevant. She
literally just posted something about she was going to give people of color or the N-words a discount. So yeah.
Exactly. Hold up. Let me take a deep breath. Katrina had photos of Miss Elizabeth. Anytime I look at the photos, I just want to draw pictures of her, but I get a little bit scared of drawing a picture of Miss Elizabeth because I drop a tear on the paper. Katrina, what should I do before I do the picture of Miss Elizabeth? I know you asked Katrina, and I'm going to let her answer, but I want to answer after Katrina. Okay, so go ahead, Katrina, and answer that question.
I mean, if you want to draw. I can't draw, so I mean, even if you're sad, I cry very easily about a lot of things. Like watch show, and I get emotional, and I'll cry and stuff. So if you cry, do you, man? Do you? It's fine.
Yeah. So I wouldn't draw the picture. If you're really going to cry over this woman, don't draw the picture. Just watch an old tape of Macho Man and Ms. Elizabeth and be happy with that moment as opposed to crying over this woman. All right? Don't do that. Don't do that. You don't want to do that.
I'm going to give a contrary opinion. I think you should, deal with your emotions, man. Like, it's okay to deal with your emotions and feel what you feel. If you want to draw the picture because you really loved her, draw the picture, man. I encourage it. But also do what Chris said. You want to even balance. Draw the picture and then watch the match with Randy Savage and Miss Elizabeth.
Miss Elizabeth affected him so much he has a tear in his eye when he draws her, and you want him to continue to draw a picture? Yes. That's so mean. Speaking of mean, OMFG, the Bella Twins deserve to be in the Hall of Fame. And then how do they deserve to be in the Hall of Fame? Hogan, Austin, Flair, and Michaels are in. If you have to answer that question, you don't know wrestling. If you really don't understand why the Bella Twins belong in the Hall of Fame, I no longer have a conversation for you. And Katrina, we will argue about it another day, so stop. Mike Riggs says, thanks, Chris.
I'm
here
making
to help.
A face because
Mike Riggs also says, thanks, Stefan. And I see your face, but we'll talk about it at another time. Vic, what you got? What you got?
Huh? Never too old to Mark Hard and Mike Proud.
Wow. It reminds me of Saturday's episode all over again, entertainment, because I wasn't talking about your final thoughts. I was asking. I was asking in general.
This man was done with that episode as soon as he said.
No, are you talking about No, you're talking about Elizabeth. Well, no, where we were at was that she
that's where we're at.
That she unfortunately had an overdose and killed herself. And then pretty much after that whole situation, they were talking about how Macho Man remarried, and he unfortunately got into a car accident, and him and his wife ended up passing away. And the show pretty much ends showing with Genius going to the spot where he had his accident, and you could see that fans consistently, they drop merch, they drop hats, they drop glasses, they show love at the spot where he had the accident. I mean, his actual burial spot where his actual body is, that's probably something that's hidden. That's probably something that's not open to the public, especially in a time like this, So people go there and they were just showing. But the unfortunate part is that it was a great love story, one of the greatest love stories in wrestling history. But the unfortunate part is that because of a lot of the details that happened between those two, in the end, they're both RIP. So yeah, that's there's light and dark, but it's definitely the dark side of the ring.
Yeah, it was kind of sucked that he finally because I felt like it took us some time to even get over even when they showed him talking about Elizabeth dying and why he wasn't with her, and he kind of kept it very I wouldn't say professional. When he was asking, he was like, I'm praying for her family and I hope her family's okay. Mm-hmm. I still felt like the fact that you still wasn't with anybody that whole time is like you obviously still loved her, even though y'all haven't been together for years now. It's like you guys don't even talk to each other like that, but you still it was obvious. It was a professional answer, but it was obvious when he was giving an answer. That kind of sucked that he finally moved on, and then not too long afterwards, because wrestling seems to do things to people's bodies. It was too late, and then he had heart condition because of that and killed him. Which is horrible to have a heart attack driving. That's horrible.
Yep,
that's horrible.
He has a heart attack while driving and ends up killing his new wife, which is terrible. Because unfortunately, both of them lost their lives in that. But at the end of the day, like the Macho King, the Macho Man, the Macho Madness, will go down in history as being one of the people that belongs in the Mount Rushmore of wrestling. I won't even say Hall of Fame. I'll say Mount Rushmore of wrestling, because the guy has influenced so many people. The guy is just an iconic character. That cream of the crop promo is one of the most memorable things that people will ever think about. So I hats off to the Macho King Randy Savage. I had a real pleasure doing this show, because I remember a lot of this stuff. I remember the whole situation between those two, and I remember what I felt. Miss Elizabeth and Macho Man getting back together is a tearful moment, even though I know it was all the work and all of that, but I can watch that back and just, get that smile and see them hug and just, get a little tear in my eye, because, yeah. So those are my final thoughts about it. What about you?
Okay, well, I guess I'll go. I mean, like I said, I started watching this show last year, and I think I actually didn't watch Randy. I think the first episode I watched was the next episode was Bret Hart, so I had to go back to watch the Randy Savage one. But even when I was watching it, it was just like I knew the story. Like I didn't like WCW growing up. I will tell everybody all day I did not like WCW. I always felt like, because I knew they were going after WWE, just was certain times I felt like they were just trying to rip off WWE, and I hated that. So I didn't like WCW. So I don't really know what they did too much in WCW, except for what I watched growing up. Afterwards, okay, let me check back on it. But I mean, it's I don't want to say it's a best. I feel like they were it was a toxic love story. It's that love story that's promoted as like this is the story, but it really isn't the story because it's kind of toxic. Like it's like that toxic relationship that people idolize. That's not a good one, but it looks good on the outside. It looks pretty on the outside, but it's toxic as fuck. I think that's what it was with them, because like it seemed like, again, America's sweetheart. He's like this big, rough around the edges guy, kind of burly, kind of overprotective. But obviously, there's a lot of shit going on outside of the ring, and I feel like maybe if they would have ended it sooner, maybe if they would have broke them up sooner, maybe things would have been different. I don't know, but it's always, again, Dark Side of the Ring makes you always make you feel sad about shit. Like, yeah, this sucks. There's only like one episode I watched Dark Side of the Ring that I felt happy after watching. Like, oh, at least you're fine in this episode. You're fine. Everybody else on Dark Side of the Ring is always like, damn. Like, ooh, like this is what life is right now. Like this is what happened. So. If you have Rice, to answer that question, Ricky, Rice usually shows it on their website. You can just type in your cable provider if you have it, or type in Daily Motion. They have all the episodes. You have to type in the name of the episode, but it's on there for people who want to use it off YouTube.
Yeah. So, Stefan, what were your thoughts on the story that we just told you?
Ooh,
based on Dark Side of the Ring.
Final thoughts, because I definitely came into this thing not prepared, guys. So I want to apologize for that. I was.
Thank you for coming in. Thank you for filling the space. Thanks,
man. Thanks for having me, guys.
Some insight, because we knew you'd be able to do that.
I definitely love talking, so I'm gonna always have something to say. I try to just talk and see where it goes. But obviously, we can't even say a Hall of Fame worthy career. That is too small for Randy Savage. Like, this guy influenced some of today's in-ring style. And I would definitely say that him and Miss Elizabeth were star-crossed lovers. And that totally encompasses it. And it's tragic, like you have two people pretty much that are beloved by millions and millions of fans that both died tragically. One by, overdose, and the other by having a heart attack just when he moves on and he finds a new wife. And I think that's the saddest thing, like people. I love professional wrestling, and I think that's what that connects each and every one of us in this conversation, and those of you who are watching us right now. And we don't know the dark side of the ring, so I think Vice has done a very good job of showing us that, and showing us that there is tragedy in this profession known as professional wrestling. And, people, like, you talk about paying your dues and, going out on your back, and all this other stuff, gimmicks and characters. These are people at the end of the day. And to see that two people's lives are pretty much ruined, and they both kind of grow up in front of us, Randy Savage and Miss Elizabeth. So to see them go from the top of the wrestling world to Elizabeth being gone, and imagine Randy feuding with Hogan for how many years over that, because he very much blamed Hogan for a lot of things. But it's just one of the most tragic stories, I think, in professional wrestling, and it's sad. There's sometimes that you wish Randy Savage was still around, because your fantasy book, you're like, what would a Randy Savage versus Seth Rollins match look like? Or what would a Randy Savage match?
Randy Savage right now, in my opinion, would definitely do a manager of a team type of thing, like Hogan did in Saudi Arabia.
You get that itch. You know what I mean? You get that itch still. You'd still get that itch. You'd still want to step in the ring, a la, Ric Flair. Ric Flair still steps in the ring whenever he freaking can. We know that Rick, like, and I think Shawn Michaels said this about Ric Flair. Richard Flair has an addiction for Ric Flair. You know what I mean? And not to get off track, I think Randy Savage had an addiction for Randy Savage, and being in front of the limelight, which is why he went to WCW in the first place, because he wanted to perform. He wanted to be up against the best. And, I'd want to see how he'd fare against wrestlers of today. What would Randy Savage in his prime, how would he do against an AJ Styles or a Daniel Bryan? You know what I mean? How would he do against, Roman Reigns or, a Kenny Omega? You know what I mean? You fantasy book those things, and you'll never be able.
It'd be really nice to see him and CM Punk.
CM Punk, like, just the promos alone, would give you, just the promos alone, would give you.
Him and the Miz, a promo battle with, oh God.
Yo, I'm telling you, like, could you imagine like Randy Savage going up against the best and MJF versus Randy Savage, just in terms of just
I want to see MJF and the Miz. I want to see that so bad.
Yo,
I feel like the Miz got it.
Booking. I mean, Miz would get it. Miz would definitely get it because he just has more experience. I see you on that. But at the same time, just seeing that match, that you would literally have some of the best promos. They don't even have to lock horns. They don't. They literally just have to have the contract signing would be better than the match, guaranteed. If they fucking do that, because
we're talking about fantasy matches. Since we shifted gears and talked about fantasy matches, would you book that as heel versus heel? Who would be the face in that match?
I don't think you would even book it that way. I don't think you can. I would literally book it as an independent match, like just two wrestlers going in. You know what I mean? Because, like, for example, a lot of times you go to the indies, you literally just go to see the people that you want to see, but it's not always just booked by heel and face. A lot of times it's just two guys having a fight. Unless the promoter has been building something already, but sometimes it just put two guys together. And the reason why everybody's so hype about it is because the ability that MJF and Miz have on the mic. You know what I mean? So you can't, like, those two guys, like, obviously what I would do is just book them both as heels and have them try to out-heel each other. Like, that's how it would be fucking really fun. For MJF and the Miz, if that was going to happen, but that's a conversation for another day.
I mean, I honestly just, it makes you sad, like, just having an episode like this, like, because I've been off air for a while, so coming back and having like an episode like last week where I was on, we were talking about SmackDown and having a really great time talking about it, to an episode like this where it's kind of like a downer. It's like
I see what you mean. I definitely see what you mean.
Definitely sad.
Well, it definitely is sad, but it's good wrestling history.
Definitely is.
Because, this is something, the cool thing about it is that, unfortunately, I don't think this is something that they can book like this again. I don't think they can redo this story. I don't think they can do it again. They don't have the talent. They don't have the ability necessarily.
You don't have the connection to your fan base the way you did before. You don't have that overall connection with your fan base. You don't have a story that will attract us in that kind of way, in terms of just getting us to really, really pay attention to the players in that scenario. You know what I mean? I don't see that happening with anybody. Like you said earlier, they tried it with Lana and Rusev, and it failed royally, not just because of the internet. I don't want to believe that. I just believe it just can't be redone. There's some things in professional wrestling that just can't.
Well, I mean, Rusev fucked that up with number one with blowing up the wedding vows, and number two by getting a haircut. So they probably could have done something with it, but
I don't think
they never used Dolph right. Like when they try to heel Dolph, like when Dolph was a heel by himself and won the World Heavyweight Championship, that's when he did his best. But now it's just like,
I mean, I just can't see them redoing certain things. I mean, like, you can't put Roman Reigns in a situation where he's still host Steve Austin. That's just not going to happen. You know what I mean?
Right.
You can't. There's certain things you can't do. You can't just, you can't rebook certain things. You could try. Imagine somebody trying to take on The Rock's gimmick or be a new version of The Rock. It just won't work. They're just this sick Bailey's This Is Your Life segment versus freaking Mick Foley, This Is Your Life.
Yeah, exactly. You can't compare them.
It cannot be done again. And shouldn't be touched. Like what they did with Randy Savage and Miss Elizabeth can't be redone. Just don't touch it. Just don't do it.
Okay, Mike, thank you, Mike.
And the players to feel better.
Wow.
I don't know why Mike's praying for you, man, but Mike's praying.
I appreciate it.
Ricky thinks no one else will be The Rock. You're damn right about that. There's only one Rock.
Yep, that's right. All righty. So it looks like the executive consultant has come back. It looks like he is back to close us out because, that's usually what he does. Hello, Mr. Executive Consultant. Are you there? Hello? Okay. All righty. Okay.
Wait. We're talking about Randy Savage. My last question about Randy Savage. Okay, this is a very unpopular question. I feel like we're on popular reviews. We have to talk about it. We have not mentioned it all night. This is a add-on question because I'm very sure they did not talk about this in the Vice show in Dark Side of the Ring. What is your opinion? Okay, because this is a rumor, and I know we don't do rumors here very much, but what do you think Randy Savage slept with Stephanie McMahon?
I hate talking about that. I hate talking about that because that's
I don't.
That's
I'm sorry.
I know.
Hearsay. I know it's hearsay.
No,
But
I don't think
feel like
he did.
it's a conversation point. If we're talking about the Macho Man Randy Savage, that is something that floated around during his entire career. It was part of
no, I
as
don't
think up in the Hall of Fame.
I don't think that he did. I think that at the time, Stephanie McMahon might have been playing with the wrestlers. And I say by playing with the wrestlers is just like, just toying with them a little bit, seeing how they react, seeing if she can get a reaction out of them. Like a lot of times there's, especially like especially like teenage girls, right? Like they won't necessarily want you, but they'll play with you and let you think, you know what I mean? And just throw things at you and let you play around and think. I think that was the case between those two, and the reason why I say that is because he was so overly obsessed with his wife and overprotective about his wife. I don't necessarily think that he had the time. Now, let me tell you one thing: he probably had the opportunity to do something and didn't take it. At the time, she probably was curious or something like that, so an opportunity maybe we want to, who knows. But I definitely don't think that he did. And that rumor goes around a lot, but then that rumor they never say that about anybody else, except Hunter Hearst Helmsley. And the one thing that I always wonder why they never do is that nobody ever says anything if she ever actually slept with Test. Because she might have actually slept with Test. You never know. But nobody ever brings that up. People just talk about Randy Savage because of that whole situation. But I highly doubt that happened. Not to say that he might have not had the opportunity. She might have flirted with him a little bit, and maybe she felt some kind of way. But I certainly don't think that happened. But that's my opinion. What do y'all think?
Trina?
Well, it was implied, at least from what I was reading, that it was supposed to be when she was a teenager. So if so, that's probably why it's a big deal. If she was a teenager, and like that's automatically I always say, like, granted, if I get sometimes people lie about the ages, and I understand that, but I always will say that a grown man knows, I don't care how pretty she looks or how busty she is or what body parts of her look a certain way. If she's not over a certain age, just leave it alone. You're not sure? Leave it alone. Just, like I don't like making excuses for men that are grown. That you're supposed to know better. So I don't know, because I think the reason why it was a big deal is because she was supposedly a teenager when it happened. I'm not going to sit here because I honestly don't know. I always say I put nothing past nobody. A person can seem perfectly normal and perfectly fine and be the craziest, dirtiest, most foul person. So I don't put nothing past nobody. I don't want to say because I do not know. But then again, I also don't put nothing past nobody. Especially the way you hear about how wrestlers get down sometimes. Listen, I don't know. I don't want to say. I just wouldn't put it past anybody. You can't put nothing past anybody. That's just like the person could be the nicest person and be like, what the hell, and do some crazy shit. So honestly, I mean, I hope not, because you should know better. Like, I hope not, but I guess some people who would know that would be him, and he's gone, and Stephanie, and maybe Vince might know something. I don't know, but
I mean, at the same time, like, he could pull a Quagmire and just wait till she's 18 and then go for the thrill. You know what I mean? Because the thing about it is that at the same time, like, all right, the thrilling part behind that is probably there because it's the boss's daughter. It's a dangerous thing. It's something that's very spicy. He might have waited till she hit a certain age not to break the law, not to, you know what I mean? But who knows? But I still think that for that to happen and for them to hide it so much after so many years and never no proof ever to come up, I don't think it actually happened. I think that is definitely a rumor. I don't know what that rumor is based on, but I don't think that ever happened.
Mr. Executive Consultant?
I don't even like talking about it. It's just a disgusting thing to me. For the very reasons Katrina said, it's just certain things I just can't get with, and it's just disgusting to think about. So I rather think that Vic is right on this. Some people use the fact that it took so long for Macho Man to get in the Hall of Fame. It took him so long for him to come back on WWE TV. They still don't even hardly mention him that much, and all that could possibly be true. However, I'm leaning more toward no. And it's just a crazy situation to think about.
Definitely not a situation where you want to think that somebody that is so, like, once again, beloved, that is, obviously capable of being such, a monster in that way. And, myself, obviously the answer is definitely no. But we the show's name is Unpopular Review, so you have to ask a very unpopular question to close out the show. And I was waiting for that spot to be able to ask the question. So thank you guys for indulging me on the question. But definitely, I don't think it ever happened. I just think that Vince was upset that Macho Man went to WCW. And Undertaker said this in his special, Vince can hold a grudge like none other. So Vince held a grudge for a very long time.
Vince can hold a grudge, but Vince is also very forgiving. And that's one of the reasons why a part of it was to make you think that it actually did happen, because he let pretty much everybody else in who screwed him over one way or the other. And Macho Man, he was like really adamant about not talking about him or anything. Like I said, even today, when they talk about the greats, they still don't mention Macho Man. And he has to be argued as one of the greats. But they never mention him in the same breath as everybody else.
There's a still sour spot there. And we could think of the Monday Night Wars. We could think of WCW. We could think of him going over.
You can't. Hulk Hogan was the biggest star they had. He left. He was on the opposing case when he was being indicted by the government.
Think about what he didn't do in that case. He didn't snitch Vince out. He said, yeah, there was drugs going on, but Vince never gave anybody drugs. You know what I mean? He was the reason why Vince won that case. If anything,
that's debatable. That's debatable. I really, you know what? Even if it wasn't a Stephanie thing, maybe the implication or whatever, but there was definitely something there, because, like I said, he's forgiven everybody for everything. Hogan, Austin, CM Punk, if he wanted to come back, he'll welcome all open arms. Chris Jericho, the same thing. So I'm just saying, there's something.
I want to say I don't think Chris Jericho is going to be welcome with the same open arms. I think Jericho.
I guarantee Chris Jericho his contract will end next year. He'll call Vince up. Vince will say, "Show up on Monday." I guarantee it.
I don't think it's going to be that easy.
I don't think that's going to happen.
He's going to bury Jericho.
I think Jericho will go back for the Hall of Fame. Jericho will. But I mean, he might go back if they leave him an open-ended contract, because the Rock and Roll, the Rock and Rager at Sea, that's not stopping. The third one is already coming out. Like, Chris Jericho is the James Brown of the wrestling industry.
That's actually what caused the tension between him and Vince.
He asked for
but at the end of the day, like, dude is doing his own thing, bro. Like, and you can't. And the shit is that Vince wants to take people and hold them hostage. That's the problem. But Chris Jericho is old enough and smart enough to brand himself out, and that's what he did.
I think it's also, if you making me money as a company business person, if you making me money and you're injured, well, now I can't get that money from you because you're injured. You can't make that appearance. You can't make that match. And I think I get it that people want to have freedom to do other stuff, but it's also how many other wrestlers who had freedom is always hurt, always injured. Probably why Vince don't let you do that. Like, logically, it sounds like it might be confining, but it also makes sense, because if you're supposed to be making money, then do your job. But then if you're injured, you can't do your job, because now you did work some other venue and got hurt, and now you can't do what you're supposed to do for me. So I understand that from, I get why Vince do that, because I personally probably would. Like, you're supposed to make me money. You're supposed to be at this match. I'm promoting you. You're supposed to do this, and now, you got this knee injury, and now because you did some other shit, like, that you shouldn't be doing. Like, that I kind of understand. Like, it's not that makes sense to me. It's like, you're supposed to be doing a job. Do it.
But at the same time, you have to realize that the Rock and Rager at Sea makes money.
Oh no, I know, and I was thinking about going to his cruise on the sea until he decided to All Lives Matter. So now I'm not giving him any of my money. But I think
I thought we were supposed to go next year. Oh, because he did all. Okay, I get it.
Yeah,
no.
I really wanted to go to the cruise. I was hyped for it. I was trying to go this year. That didn't work out too well, but I wanted to go. And then he all lives mattered like 4 days in a row, and that was it for me. I was like, I'm not giving you my money, so that's dope. But yeah.
I mean, I think that if Vince had capitalized on the Rocking Rager, and this is kind of my last thoughts on Jericho, because Jericho is one of the people that in this business, one of the few people that know how to renovate themselves, and recreate themselves constantly. He's amazing at that. So you put him in that situation where he asked Vince, "Hey, just need a few NXT wrestlers to go over to the Rocking Rager, have a few matches and whatever, and then come back." WWE could have marketed that as a yearly event, and Jericho and Vince would have lined up tremendously with that. So I don't know what the hell Vic is watching that sound, but I know it's scared Katrina. But definitely,
somebody's breaking into a Wells Fargo right now. Like that shit is crazy.
It definitely was a missed opportunity from Vince. But I mean, Chris, is debatable. I think if he'd let Jericho back in scot-free, if you let him back in even, you're going to bury him first because Vince does it to everyone.
You're not going to bury Chris Jericho.
You're going to bury him. You're gonna
No, they're not. They're not going to bury Chris
way
Jericho.
Of burying Chris Jericho.
Buried in the sense that you bury him at the bottom of the barrel, but he's going to lose a couple of matches. He's going to go on a losing streak. He did it with Brock.
All right, first of all, next year Chris Jericho needs to retire. That's one. Second of all, they're not burying Chris Jericho. You're just not burying. There are some wrestlers you're just not going to do that to. Chris Jericho's one of them.
Brock Lesnar, if you did it with Brock Lesnar, for God's sakes, come on. Brock Lesnar went to NFL and UFC, and then he came back, and Vince McMahon buried him. He lost.
Vince McMahon buried Brock Lesnar. You're not even making sense right now. When did Vince McMahon bury Brock Lesnar?
Think about his loss to Triple H and John Cena, respectively. He lost both those guys on his comeback. So for me, it was a bit of a, hey, I'm going to punish you for leaving and walking out on this company. So he's going to punish you. You're going to lose a couple of matches. I'm not going to say bury you as in terms of a full-scale burial, where it's just like you're completely done and you're unbelievable. But you're going to lose a couple of matches. You know what I mean? To make up for the fact that you left Vince. Vince is very petty, I hear. I don't know the man, but I could only imagine.
So because he lost to John Cena, even though he dominated him that entire match, then he had his next match against Triple H at SummerSlam and beat Triple H to the point where Triple H looked like he was going to retire. But then Triple H came back and got his win back and then lost the match after that to he beat Triple H. I don't see it. I don't see it, dog. There are certain wrestlers that are just not getting buried because it doesn't make sense to Vince McMahon's pocket. Vince is always going to protect his pocket. Right. Bringing Chris Jericho back is going to get him money. Having Chris Jericho come back and immediately just have him in a match and lose is not going to make him money.
I think if you have Jericho in a match to begin with, it's going to make him money. It doesn't matter if he loses or wins in that sense. Okay. You know what I mean? Well,
quite frankly, I don't want to see Jericho back in the WWE ring wrestling. I want to see him in the Hall of Fame. I think he needs to retire. He's, 50 years old or about to be 50. He's still very good in the ring. Do not go out starting to look weak in the ring like Kurt Angle did. And that's the problem I have. Kurt Angle's one of the greatest of all time. Yeah, and unfortunately, the Undertaker. So it's not smart. Go ahead and retire.
Sounds good.
All righty then. So to close this out,
yes, I'm still here, and Willie's not here.
Of course. So, Mr. Executive Consultant, would you like to start with the commercials?
Did you play the second commercial?
Huh?
Did you play the second commercial?
Yeah, I played the T-shirt commercial.
Well, play the social media commercial real quick, then we'll wrap up.
All right.
Thank you for watching this edition of the Unpopular Review. If you like what you're watching, please subscribe to us on our social media on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, and YouTube at UPRYEPILW. Also, while you're at it, subscribe to our friends at Yep I Like Wrestling on the same social medias at YEPILW. Yep.
Yep.
Ladies and gentlemen, watching Unpopular Reviews, powered by Yep I Like Wrestling, executive consultant Katrina Storm, the Mark Victor Rodriguez, as well as Stefan here. Ladies and gentlemen, any final thoughts? Katrina, start with you.
No, just thank you guys, Vic, Stefan, for joining me, and I guess you partially Chris because you was like in and out. Because I told you I did like Dark Side of the Ring personally. Probably one of my favorite shows about wrestling. That's not like super boring or anything. So, that's pretty much it. Just like look out for the next episode, which will be the whole Montreal screw job. So that should be good.
Mark Victor Rodriguez. Remember that comment I said earlier about drugs? This is living proof. Like, what's going on?
I am high as a kite right now.
I believe it.
I'm just a little tired, but you're never too old to mark hard and mark proud. That's my catchphrase. But when it comes to the Macho King, Randy Savage, and Miss Elizabeth, it is sad. I love them. They cause so much emotion to my childhood, but the outcome is sad. Truth be told, Hulk Hogan and the Macho King are two of the reasons why I decided not to become a wrestler. Even though I love wrestling, but I'll just leave it at that because unfortunately the outcome is just sad. Now, at the same time, if I would have thought differently, I probably would be like John Cena and Xavier Woods playing video games instead of doing coke. But hey, you never know. I enjoy my life as a realtor, so it's okay. But yeah, it's just sad. But to end this, you're never too old to mark hard. Go ahead, Stefan.
What you got?
I wanna thank you for the call. Whenever I get the call to come on and be a part of the show, it's actually a really great experience. So I want to thank you guys for having me tonight as a guest analyst of sorts. It's really sad when you talk about people you look up to that are no longer around. We as wrestling fans, like, we have our fantasy Mount Rushmore of professional wrestlers that would be there, and definitely for me, Randy Savage is one of them. Very before his time, very innovative, amazing in the ring, amazing on the mic. Somebody that definitely other wrestlers model their style after. So I mean, it's unfortunate. And then Miss Elizabeth, who was one of the great valets, one of the great managers. It's all unfortunate. So that being said, I mean, closing. It's stay away from drugs. Be passionate about something. Be passionate about someone. Don't get addicted to someone or something. But other than that, it definitely is sad. I agree with the Mark sentiments. It definitely is sad.
Dark Side of the Ring, episode 1 of season 1. Let me tell you something. They start off with a very good episode. They start off with something very, very powerful because, like I said before, this is a story that a lot of people knew. This is a story a lot of people grew up on in wrestling. Even if you weren't aware completely what was going on at the time, it was very relevant to, or prevalent, I should say, to you within the years to come. Very sad ending, but it would not be called Dark Side of the Ring if it wasn't sad.
Yes.
Ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much for watching us. Please join us tomorrow at 6:00 p.m. for another episode. Had a move this week. Unpopular Reviews Gaming Edition with the Mark Victor Rodriguez as well as the technician David Sanderson as they talk Mario Kart and Mario Party. Definitely want to tune in for that episode at 6:00 Thursday. And immediately after, pretty much, Thursday, AEW NXT edition. Mark Victor Rodriguez again, as well as the technician David Sanderson again, are joined by Bad Guy Jack and the insider Dylan Kaplan as they discuss to you everything going on AEW NXT. NXT's Go Home show happened earlier tonight as they prepare for In Your House this coming Sunday. On Friday at 6:00, Unpopular Reviews Entertainment. What? The final 2 movies for Twilight. Great. didn't have the graphics, so you put up that god-awful trailer. But it'll be at 6 o'clock p.m. Katrina Storm, Cedar Superior, as well as myself and the Will of Teen Dreams supposed to join us, so probably won't see him. But at 6 o'clock on Friday, immediately after SmackDown, we have Unpopular Review SmackDown Edition that looks like Raw. Unpopular Review SmackDown Edition with myself, Big Daddy Cool, and ladies and gentlemen, once again, we're opening up the phone lines. We're opening up the floodgates. Anybody can call in or video in and join myself and Big Daddy Cool to talk SmackDown for that evening. And on Saturday, we have Unpopular Reviews Entertainment Edition, where we're talking about the next episode of Guardians of the Galaxy. MCU does not.
Oh,
go ahead.
You took it off.
I did. Oh, it's on the other one, but we don't need to play the trailer. Guardians of the Galaxy 2. That's at 5 o'clock. Unpopular Reviews. And on Sunday, it does not stop. Immediately after NXT TakeOver in your house, join Bad Guy Jack. Talk about with NXT in your house. Big pay-per-view coming up. NXT
Somebody's bandwidth is slow.
All right. So speaking about NXT in your house, it's going to be Mr. Bad Guy Jack. I think the executive consultant, and I think Miss Katrina Storm.
Negative.
No.
It's a negative.
All right, you're back and not Robody. Okay.
NXT TakeOver is going to be Bad Guy Jack. It's going to be Bad Guy Jack and the technician David Sanderson.
All right. Yes, the technician and Mr. Bad Guy Jack. All right. Anything else, Mr. Executive Consultant?
In your house.
Anything else, Mr. Executive Consultant?
Monday night, immediately after Raw, join myself, Katrina Storm, and Big Daddy Cool as we talk about the A Show, Monday Night Raw. And that always is a fun time. So you definitely want to check that out. That is pretty much it. I won't talk about Tuesday because we don't know what's going on Tuesday yet. Just make sure that you're following us on UPR Yep ILW so you can keep track of every show that we have and every single timetable that we have. Make sure you like, love, and share this video as well as subscribe to our YouTube channel. And I'll say it again, share this video. If you have not done so already, give it a share. And yeah, that's pretty much it. So for Katrina Storm, for the Mark Victor Rodriguez, for Stefan, I'm the exec consultant, and we will see you tomorrow for UPR Gaming Edition. Good night, ladies and gentlemen.